And we are live from South Carolina in the United States. Welcome back, everyone, to episode 25 of Priceless Takes. I am your host, Luka Price. Joining me today, once again, Oscar Hardcastle and Tyson McMullen. Great to have you guys here. How are you doing? It's early. It's early-ish and late morning right now in Australia where you guys are, but I hope you guys are doing well.
Yes, very well.
Always
Yeah,
doing well.
listen, there is a lot going on right now. Obviously, I'm repping my Texas Longhorns. They just made the Elite Eight yesterday. They're playing tomorrow, so I'm hoping they can do some good things. We saw the 9 seed FAU get to the Final Four. But while we do appreciate the college basketball and everything that's going on, we are here to talk about some NBA this week. There has been a lot to discuss, and we will get straight into it, starting with the Los Angeles Lakers, who find themselves, I would say, in a pretty good spot. I was one of those people that were doubting the Lakers in this recent stretch of games, and they've proved me wrong, going 7-3 in their last 10 games, currently sitting 8th in the Western Conference. They had a big 111-106 win over Oklahoma City the other night. AD, 37-15, 71% shooting, absolute monstrous performance. Now, the question everyone wants to know is, what is happening with LeBron James? Now, the reports are that he has resumed on-court activities, but he quoted himself saying that he speaks for himself regarding his injury. Now, as we know, the Lakers sit in the 8th spot, 2 games back of the 4 seed, but 1 game behind the 11th seed. So they are in the middle of a large group fighting for playoff position. Coming up in their schedule, they face the Chicago Bulls in their next 2 consecutive games. For those of you who don't know, Oscar is a raging Chicago Bulls fan and Tyson's our resident Lakers fan. So they will be playing both of their matchups the next 2 games. We're going to get into that in a second. But what I want to know, Tyson, from you first, I'm going to ask, do you think the Lakers win one, both, or none of these games against Chicago? These are 2 really important games for their season. If they lose both of them, they could fall back down to 11. If they win both of them, they could find themselves as high as the 5th seed. So what do you think will be the outcome of these games?
Look, realistically, going off momentum, our push, our strive for greatness, as one would say. Look, realistically, I see us winning both. But knowing the Lakers, I also have a feeling in the back of my mind that one game, probably the second one, Anthony Davis is going to foul someone on 3 and we lose again. Either a buzzer beater or some free throws. Look, just knowing our luck.
Yeah, okay. So the first game is actually in LA.
Hmm.
Do you think that benefits or
Yeah,
negative for the
definitely.
Lakers? You think that benefits the Lakers having the first game in LA?
Definitely. Got a
Oscar,
bit
what do you think?
more momentum.
What do you think? Your Bulls are sitting at the
Um,
10 seed right now in the Eastern
you
Conference,
know,
so they could really use these games.
you're probably coming out here thinking I'm going to say they're going to win both games. Unlike Lakers fans, Bulls fans a little bit more realistic. Um, I
Huh.
think that we lose both. we
Yeah.
Really?
we lose in LA, and then it's the long flight to Chicago, and then DeMar might drop 40, but the rest of the team does nothing. And yes, we lose both personally, and I think we drop right out of the play-in.
Really? Wow. That's some
Yeah,
real
actually, we
pessimism
might
from you there,
we might
Oscar.
not drop out. We might not drop out the play-in, but we'll drop. We'll drop. We'll drop both games.
Yeah, listen, there was an interesting quote I read earlier in the day from Patrick Beverley, who was talking his stuff, saying that he would love to ruin the Lakers' chances at making the playoffs.
You know,
Anthony
I'd love
Davis
that. I'd
responded.
love that as well. I'd love that as well, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Anthony da- Anthony Davis responded saying that he can try his best. So I don't know. Personally, when I look at the matchup, Anthony Davis is a Chicago native. He's born in Chicago. So every time he goes to that building, he tries to have his way with the Bulls. Now, on the other side, obviously you have DeRozan. DeRozan was linked to the Lakers a lot in his free agency 2 years ago. He was even linked to the Lakers this season in a trade package. So was Levine. So I think this game might be both of
Is
these games are
DeRozan
going to
even
be
playing?
interesting because there's he
Didn't
should
play last
be.
game.
I'll give you a double check.
Live update.
But as far as I know, he will be playing. Yeah, he's not on the injury report. I didn't think there was any reason for him to be, but he should be healthy. It's tough. The Lakers are 7-3. They're playing well. LeBron is actually listed as doubtful for the first game. So doubtful, he's probably not going to play. I don't think he needs to come back at this moment. If the Lakers lose these 2 games, maybe. But personally, I am going to change my opinion because I have counted out the Lakers recently. I'm going to go say they win both games because I think Anthony Davis has a big
I think
performance in Chicago.
it's a terrible matchup for Vucevic. He's going to get dominated by AD.
Well, yeah, look, I think AD has an absolute monstrous game in Chicago. Tomorrow, I think the others might have a bit more of a performance. It's a midday game for the Lakers, so sometimes that sort of switches things up a little bit. But I'm going to get into the bigger picture here. Obviously, we know it's a scrap and claw through the middle pack of the Western Conference. Where do you see the Lakers ending up as? I'll repeat what I said before. 2 games back at the 4 seed, but 1 game all the way back from the 11 seed. So, Tyson, realistically, where do you think the Lakers end up? Do you think they can get into those automatic playoff spots? There's only 8 games to go.
Look, realistically, I think we could probably slot into the 6th, but maybe as far back as the 8. I reckon from the 6 to 8 range, we're pretty comfortable in. Like we might lose some unlucky game down the stretch that might set us back, but we're definitely good enough to be sitting around 6 to 8.
Oscar?
I think they're just going to miss out the 7th. I think they're going to make the 7th. It'd be cool if they made the 6th, but I just don't know who's dropping out of that top 6. So maybe the Clippers. So I don't know.
Yeah.
maybe the Clippers will, but I think they're just going to miss out. They're going to get to the 7th, I'd say, which is not a bad feat for where they were. So
No, that's not a bad feat for where they were. I think it's definitely going to be interesting to watch, especially with the return of LeBron. I think if the Lakers have the luxury of continuing their winning form and not having to use LeBron maybe until the second last game of the regular season, the last game, and he comes fresh, that's going to be a big luxury for them because the last thing they want is to lose these next 2 games. They fall back to the 11 seed, and then you're faced with a decision. Do you play LeBron because you really need him for that push, or do you just say it's not worth risking LeBron's health? If we're not good enough with what we have, then we don't deserve to make the play-in. That's what I wonder if they're going to be facing that dilemma.
See, then there's questions about if they do lose both games without LeBron, should you have played him if he was available? I just don't think they'll risk not playing LeBron in these last big games to push him into the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Lakers overall would just look foolish if they play LeBron and then all of a sudden they manage to squeeze into the first round and then he gets injured in the first round. So that's just going to be like, well, what for? Well, what for? So ultimately, I think you got to go with you got to go with your guns. And right now, they're playing well. They're playing well. I don't think that you want to risk it, realistically. Tyson, you have anything to say before we sound off on this topic?
No, every player on this roster is stepping up big. We see Lonnie Walker finally getting some minutes yesterday. I'm so happy. He's one of my favorite players. Finally getting minutes, and he's putting up big numbers like always. What do you get? 20-odd points or something? 4 threes?
Yeah.
He steps up. He steps up.
Hey, you know who else has been stepping up, Tyson? You know who else has been stepping up?
AR-15.
Yeah.
An MVP, some might say. But look, we got certain players who will step up big We've got enough. If someone has a bad game, someone else will step up. We just got enough pieces now, so we're pretty comfortable.
Yeah,
And then
listen, the
AD's
Austin
just
Reeves,
consistently.
yeah,
AD just has
consistently
to do everything.
inconsistent.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
consistently inconsistent is the
yeah,
phrase I like
yeah,
to use talking about
yeah.
80. But we will switch gears. Sticking in the Western Conference, Ja Morant made his return to action Wednesday night against the Houston Rockets. They played Houston again last night, winning both games. Last night, they poured on 151 points, which is pretty insane during regulation. But he came off the bench in both of those games. He had 17 on Wednesday, 18 last night. Memphis are 8-2 in their last 10. They were getting increasingly hot even without Ja Morant. They're 3 games back of the 1 seed, 2 games clear of Sacramento in the 3rd spot, and they have the best home record in the NBA this year. Now, there has just been a lot of different stories. There were a lot of people's finals picks at the start of the year when people didn't know who would win the West. And then we obviously had the turmoil with Ja Morant and the nightclub incident in Denver. Then he was gone for counseling. Then he came back from counseling, but then he got suspended. But then half of the games he was in counseling for when he was suspended, and then he comes back just all of a sudden off the bench. And now the Grizzlies find themselves in a weird sort of spot where they're playing well, but their best player's coming off the bench and still integrating himself into the lineup. I want to know from you guys, Oscar, can the Memphis Grizzlies go on a run to the NBA Finals this year? Do you think they have what it takes?
No, I do not. I think in 7 games against not most, but some of those top sides, I think they're going to struggle. Like they might, they'll probably make it first.
Do we just lose
Uh-oh.
They probably make it first. They past the first round. I don't see them
Uh-oh.
making it. Maybe the second, but I don't see them making it too much further. Like, yeah, I just
Yeah?
don't.
Yeah, listen, well, look, if the Lakers do manage to, win that first play-in game, should they be there, that would be their opponent in the first round. So that would be an interesting playoff series. But, Tyson, do you think the Grizzlies can go on a finals run? Or do you think it's too little too late for them to make that push?
Look, I just don't see them making a finals run. I think there's just much better playoff um, built teams in the West that are just made for it. They can easily just blow by the Grizzlies, no matter what record they have. Their team, they're all right. They've got obviously Jar, Triple J, but then you got problems such as Dylan Brooks,
I
who's
hate that
just
guy so much. I'll say it
he's
every episode. I hate him.
he's pretty inconsistent. Because I like to check his stats sometimes, and I do see maybe like 2 from 15 from the field, which brings a smile to my face.
It's not his job out there,
But
T-Man, to score, though. It's getting
but
Draymond's
hey,
head. Getting Draymond's
Exactly,
head.
exactly. It isn't his job to score. He's their
but
tone setter on defense.
I mean, if you're losing games and shooting 2 from 15, you might as well pass it
Yeah,
off to
you're not
someone
wrong.
else. You
You're
know
not
what
wrong.
I mean? But hey, they're just too inexperienced, and I just don't see them very threatening.
Yeah, listen, if I'm being honest, I think you guys and a lot of people right now are actually sleeping on the Memphis Grizzlies. If I'm being truly honest, I
I'm
want
gonna
to
remain
flash back.
sleeping as well.
I'm going to flash back. I actually, in one of our first episodes on this podcast, said that the Memphis Grizzlies would make the NBA Finals. Do I think they still will? I am not convinced. But do I think they can go on a run to the finals? I think they definitely can go on a run to the finals.
Too
Last
much
year, they
March Madness.
no,
Too much.
no.
Too
Listen,
much March Madness. Too many
last year,
Cinderella runs.
no. But hear me out. Listen, hear me out. All right. Last year, it was their first real taste of playoff action. Okay, they made it to the second round. They versed the Warriors. Ja Morant missed a layup to win Game 1. Okay, then it went 1-1. Dylan Brooks got suspended. We obviously know what happened, and as much as we bag him, he is a big part of their team. So They took the Warriors to 6 games, and I think this year they've kept mostly the same players. They've got another year to develop. Obviously, we had that hiccup with Ja Morant, but in the grand scheme of things, he was out less than 2 weeks.
Hiccup. He punched a kid.
Well, listen, that was long before the NBA season even started when that report came out. But listen, the Memphis Grizzlies have the best home record in the NBA. I already stated that. That isn't something to mess around with. They also have 11 players averaging 15 minutes or more, 6 players who have 10 plus points per game scorers, 4 players, 35% plus 3-point shooting, okay? In my opinion, they are the deepest team in the NBA, and I think they are poised to go on a deep playoff run. When you look at the inconsistencies throughout the other teams in the West, I just think that they have what it takes. Jaren Jackson Jr., like you said, Oscar, he has been playing great offensively, and he's my defensive player of the year right now, averaging 3 blocks a game. They still have been doing this all without Steven Adams, who's a big presence for them in the paint, getting a lot of rebounds, and they have a lot of good pieces. Luke Kennard, the first player in NBA history to shoot 90% in an NBA game and 10 3-pointers. I know it was against the Houston Rockets. It's the Houston Rockets. But to shoot 10 of 11 3-pointers is no joke. Okay, I don't think either of you can dispute that. And that's just the type of firepower these guys have. So I would love to hear your response, because I really don't think you have much more to it other than the fact that Ja Morant's had his little incident and that they're not that good of a team.
Yeah, that's actually about it. No, you say they're deep. They're not actually that deep. Realistically, they're not. Luke Kennard's not doing that every game. You've got this Aldama fella who's average at best. They're not that deep. They've got a few bits. They've got a few bits and pieces. They got a good point guard. They've got a good guard in Desmond Bane, and they got Jaren Jackson Jr. as their best players. They got a few guys who can do bits and pieces on the bench. They don't have a guy that off the bench that can really consistently be decent in my eyes. I think
he's a great player off the bench. He consistently played amazing while Ja Morant was out. I think it's outrageous you're saying.
Yeah, while Ja Morant was out, when he's back, he's taking up minutes. He's taking up ball usage rate.
12 points and 7 assists. He's a good floor general, and he makes timely shots when he needs to. I don't think you can name one team in the NBA that has a better bench than the Memphis Grizzlies right now.
Lakers.
No, rubbish.
I don't know about that.
I'd back it.
I don't think you can name one team. And honestly,
if you look at our bench, we get at least majority of our points come off the bench. I mean, we've got great bench players. We get like 60 plus bench points.
I think you guys are sleeping. I think you're really underestimating what these guys on Memphis can do.
No,
I just don't rate them.
Look, we'll see when we make our finals play predictions and playoff brackets, because it still hasn't even got to the climactic point of the season yet, and there's still a lot to go around. But we're going to head back to LA, and we're going to go talk about the Clippers, where there's been a lot of developments happening around the Clippers. Obviously, Oscar was firing shots before Take, saying that the Clippers could fall into the play-in, but they actually right now hold sole possession of the 4th seed in the Western Conference after Phoenix lost 2 nights ago to the Sacramento Kings. And they play again tonight against the Sixers. The Clippers play tonight against the Pelicans. So we'll see what happens in that game. But the bigger issue here is Paul George injured himself on Tuesday night against Oklahoma City. He's out for 2 to 3 weeks with a right knee sprain. Probably going to force him back at least to the first round of the playoffs. If the second round, if they get that far, we don't know. But what happened in the first game without Paul George? Kawhi Leonard, 32 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, 13 of 15 shooting. What a performance from him. Russell Westbrook, 24.7 assists. The Clippers outscored the bench 51 to 30 for the Oklahoma City Thunder in an absolute blowout. So it can be done. But I want to know from you guys, is this just a one-game apparition from the Clippers? Do you think Tyson, they can survive without Paul George? Or do you think they need Paul George to make any sort of noise in the playoffs?
They definitely need Paul George to make noise. Definitely need Paul George to make some noise. Although in the playoffs, he doesn't really step up that much. PG 13%, but he's still a good player to make some noise, and you don't really have um, that push factor with your two guard. I don't know. It's a bit hard, man. So I don't know
Well,
where they'll
well,
end up.
I only ask because you guys were down on the Clippers to begin with Paul George. You guys didn't think they were going to give that much in the postseason this year. So I want to know realistically, how much do you think this actually affects them? Or do you think it's going to be the same outcome either way?
Hmm. Look, I don't know if Kawhi can just keep doing his thing. Well, I mean, he's done it before, like just carry a team, but I don't I, I don't know. I feel like now he's on the Clippers, he sort of needs Paul George, like he's
You
Yes.
could be right. He came off that big injury. Oscar, I see a lot of head shakes from you. What are your thoughts on the Paul
Well,
George
first
injury
of
with the
all, you're
Clippers?
talking about this big win. What was it last night? It was against the OKC. I can score 51
Okay,
points against
okay,
that
fine. Well, to
OKC.
put it into perspective, everyone was saying how big the Lakers' win was against OKC, so I don't see what the difference is,
Yeah, but
really.
that's because they're the best team in LA and the Clippers are average. So no one wants to talk about the Clippers. Everyone wants to talk about LA. That's why it's different. It's different gravy. I, I don't see him. I personally see him dropping into the play-in. 2.5 games back, isn't it, from the play-in? Something like
Yeah.
that. I see him dropping into it without PG. He's been balling out. I don't think Kawhi can take you all the way. So I see him dropping into the play-in.
Listen, Tyson brought up
Imagine,
the point.
imagine. Sorry. Imagine the scenes if the
Yeah,
Clippers drop out and the Lakers get into the playoffs. That would be
yeah.
crazy. Oh my
well,
god,
I
that
saw
would be
earlier this
amazing.
week. Earlier this week, Nick Wright actually backed your prediction, and he had the Lakers finishing in the sixth spot. He had the Clippers finishing in the eighth spot. And
That's so funny.
personally, I think that's just absolutely ridiculous. And the Clippers are going to continue to be slept on. Now, Tyson brought up the point before. Kawhi's carried his own team before. Is this situation different? I think yes, it is different. He's come off a big injury where he's been out for a year. But I think in this game, he's shown what he can do without Paul George. 13 to 15 shooting is nothing to shy about. Scoring 32 points on 13 shots is not easy. I can only name you another 5 or 6 players who I think can score 32 points on 13 shots. That's not easy to do.
Luke
Now,
Kennard.
well, hey, yes, yes, but we saw when Kawhi was with the Raptors, he scored the third most points ever on a playoff run. So we know that he can carry this team. Now, what I saw from the Clippers, I don't know if you watched the game. I assume you didn't watch the game, but I pretty much watched all the Clippers games. I watch all the Lakers games. I try to watch every game from most teams that are relevant. And I saw an offense that looked completely different. I saw an offense that when it was run through Kawhi, they were getting more open three-point shots, and Kawhi was getting to his spot easier, getting those mid-range shots that he liked, and he found his rhythm quick in the game. Oftentimes, I think when Paul George's on the court, him and Kawhi pass the ball around, and they're like, no, you do it, no, you do it, and the offense becomes quite stagnant. Often, it ends up in one of them just dribbling the ball and going for a basket or dribbling and kicking out. And I don't think their offense has actually been very good with both of them on the court. And we've seen that. They've been a bottom five offensive team pretty much the whole year. So I don't think anyone can dispute that. I'm not saying the Clippers are better without Paul George, but I think it's a different angle on the team. And I think it'll maximize the most out of Kawhi Leonard. Now, the problem I have, and I'm sure you two will agree with me, is now this means that Russell Westbrook is going to get more minutes, he's going to get more shot attempts, and in my opinion, there's more room for error. And he played well last night, but I don't see Russell Westbrook playing that well every night. And I'm sure you guys don't either. So that's the one concern for me is do you think, how much of a factor do you think Westbrook plays into this, realistically?
I mean, Westbrook can have a blinder of a game every now and then, but I think, as you said, Westbrook playing more minutes is probably going to do the team worse than it is, bad than it is good. So I think they're going to struggle with Westbrook on for more minutes, especially if the game's close and the ball's in Westbrook's hands and not Kawhi's. Wow, oh no.
Yeah, well, you do, and I make a good point because obviously the Clippers ended up just blowing Oklahoma out of the water. So the game wasn't close. And that brings up the question, what is it going to be like? Which is at this moment in time, like I said, we don't know because there hasn't been a sample size, but we do know what's happened in the past. And what's happened in the past is Kawhi has led a team to a championship playing a style of offense that runs through him. And that's a fact. We know that's happened. Obviously, what's happened since then, the Clippers curse, for what it's worth, seems to just keep happening over and over and over again. I'm not going to say it's true, but it's something is going wrong in that building. I hope that whatever thing it is gets lifted once they leave crypto.com and go to their own arena. But I don't know. Clippers Suns first round matchup right now, as it is, you two think they're both going to drop, but that's what it is right now. If I'm the Clippers, I do not want to be in the 4-5 side of the bracket because you have the Suns, who, with a healthy KD, I think they beat the Clippers. If you manage to beat the Suns, I think that the Clippers are probably the worst matchup for the Denver Nuggets. I think the Denver Nuggets, they've won the last 9 games in a row against the Clippers. So I think that's the worst possible matchup for them. And I look at the other side of the bracket. If they manage to get down to 6, or even if they get down to 7 and they play the Grizzlies in the first round, I think they can beat the Grizzlies. I think they can beat the Kings. I think they can beat the Warriors all in first round series, whoever it ends up being. So, why? Who do you think they don't beat?
I don't think you're beating the Kings, and I don't think you're beating the Warriors out of those ones.
Well, personally, I think the Warriors are a matchup nightmare for the Clippers, especially once Kawhi actually starts playing defense in the playoffs. Because everyone was saying that about Dallas and how Doncic was dropping who knows what. But then when push came to shove, Kawhi, in the most pivotal moments of the last playoff series against the Mavericks, Kawhi shut down Doncic. All right? The whole game stats won't tell you that because Kawhi doesn't play two ways because of...
It's Steph Curry, though. It's not Doncic. Steph Curry.
I think in the most pivotal points of the game, Kawhi Leonard can lock down Steph Curry. In the most pivotal points of the game. Maybe not for a whole game, because Kawhi's not that player anymore. But in the most pivotal points of the game, I still think Kawhi Leonard is probably the best on-ball defender in the NBA. And if you disagree, I want you to name someone better. Who's a better on-ball defender when the rubber meets the road?
Give me Pat Beverly. give me Pat Bev. That's my guy.
That is absolute baloney. The fact that you said Pat Bev makes me just reassuring my case that I'm right. And I really, maybe in another episode, I would want you to name someone. But speaking of those Dallas Mavericks, what on earth is going on in Dallas, guys? Something's going on. They're 3-10 in their last 10. They currently sit 11th, missing the playoffs. They're 2.5 games out of the 6th seed. Granted, half a game out of the 7th seed. But they lost 117-109 to the Charlotte Hornets. Now, I'm not sure if you guys read the Doncic quote, but he had some pretty rough words to say. He said that it's really frustrating, and sometimes he doesn't feel it's him. He's just being out there. He said, I used to have really fun smiling on the court, but it's just been so frustrating for a lot of reasons, not just basketball. Now, I want to know from you, Oscar, first. Do you think Dallas will climb back up into the play-in? And what do you think is the main reason they have just been so out of form in these last 10 games?
Well, I hope they do. I mean, they'll be a fun team to watch in the play-in and the playoffs. So I hope they do crawl back into it just for, the NBA's sake. But I think you can't put a finger on what's going wrong because their offense out of obviously their two stars is average, but I don't know. I feel like there should be Doncic and Kyrie just should be dominating and carrying each game, and it's not actually happening like that. Well, they are, but stats wise they are, but it's not. And the defense is horrendous right
It's
now
not
for them.
translating to wins.
It's not translating to wins, and the defense is just horrible. So I don't know what the issue is. Is it the Kyrie Irving trade? Probably, but at the end of the day, I can't really put a finger on what's happening.
Yeah, Tyson, what do you think? I'm not sure your stance on this. Do you think it's the Irving trade, that loss of depth they lost? They lost a lot of key players from that playoff run last year. Because keeping things into perspective, Dallas made the conference finals last year. All right. And to go from making the conference finals to missing not even the playoffs, the play-in tournament would be an absolute travesty of a season.
And you've added Kyrie, so.
And you've added Kyrie. So, Tyson, what do you think is the main reason for their struggles right
now? Honestly, I don't know. They just seem lost. They before the trade, I feel like they're a solid team. It's like a lot of international play, but they they knew their purpose. Give Doncic the ball, we just do our role like this. And now it's you have Kyrie, but then you have less depth. But also, I just find it really insulting how they beat my Lakers without Doncic and win and can't win against the Hornets.
now? Well, that says something about the Lakers, doesn't it?
No, it's just bad game.
In LA too.
Bad game. But
Yeah.
they seem like a lost cause at the moment. They need to find their feeding ASAP.
Yeah, I can't help but agree, and I hate to say this, but realistically, I first guessed this. I don't care this year, next year, the year after, Kyrie and Doncic do not fit together, and it is not going to work in the short term or the long term. Now, the other thing that's been plagued is they have been injured, and I give them some sort of a pass for being injured because they had a couple of those games where, like you said, Tyson, they didn't even have Doncic or Kyrie Irving, right? They were playing without both of them at one point. Then you had Doncic come back for a game without Kyrie. Then the other night against Charlotte, you had them both back. And the whole thing is they've just lost so much chemistry because they haven't been on the court together. But they never had any chemistry to begin with. So while I'm surprised they've fallen this far, I'm not surprised with the problems they're having. And Doncic is frustrated. Kyrie's frustrated. And at the end of the day, I still think the Mavericks have made a mistake with this trade when it all comes down to it. Tyson, you hit the nail on the head perfectly. They knew their role and they knew what to do. They got into the conference finals. Getting the conference finals isn't easy. So to blow that all up, because quite frankly, what the GM of the Mavericks said is he said that they felt they would it would be troublesome for them if they didn't make the Kyrie Irving trade, alluding to the fact that he might go to the Lakers or he might go to the Suns or another team that competes with them. So they've clearly been worried about other teams and not themselves. Oscar, you're laughing at something.
I just find it that the Clippers fans saying getting into the conference finals isn't easy. It just makes me giggle because
it's not easy.
With the Clippers' history, it is hard. It's hard for teams like the Clippers, yeah.
Clearly. So when you do make the conference finals, something clearly works. When you make it, you have to admit that something clearly works. So I don't know. I would love to see if Jason Kidd keeps his job if they miss the play-in, because
he's going.
I don't think it's necessarily his fault, but they're not going to kick out Doncic. And
when you think about it, though, look, at the end of the day, it is his fault because if you got two offensive stars like Kyrie and Doncic and are scoring 109 points, geez,
I think he's partially to blame, but I don't think it's his fault. I think it's the GM's fault and the ownership group for plunging on this type of trade. Because I don't
Yeah.
think that's not the head coach's decision. The head coach is to coach the team, and he coached the team to the conference finals. He's done that. So I think he's partially to blame. I think they would have probably had a conversation with him, and they said, "Can you make this work?" And he probably said yes. So I think he is to blame, but I think
I think he got too comfortable with just running everything through Luka as well.
yeah, yeah. Listen, the Mavericks will be an interesting team to watch in the next few weeks, but we're going to move on to our final topic, which I'm sure is going to have some tempers flaring because the Philadelphia 76ers find themselves again in an interesting spot. Injury concerns, MVP talk, it's all going on in Philadelphia right now. They have a back-to-back tonight, starting honestly in about 10 minutes against the Phoenix Suns. Embiid and Harden were questionable when I last checked. I'm going to check for you now if they're still questionable because it wasn't uploading for me when I did it last. I'm not sure if they're playing or not, but the bigger matter is they lost to the Warriors last night, 120 to 112. Embiid had 46 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists, 19 of 22 free throws. Harden was a DMP. Harden and Embiid, injury concerns. Harden, Achilles soreness. Embiid, calf soreness. We've had many debates in the past about their playoff history, their expectations for this season, but I want to get a concrete trust factor from you. Tyson, I'm going to start with you first. On a scale of 1 to 10, what is your trust factor of Embiid and Harden come in the playoff time?
You mean like injury wise or like
I mean, just everything. Like, how much do you trust them? Because injuries is a part of the playoffs. So I want to know how much you trust them in the playoffs when we're talking about winning a championship. Just everything. Injuries, healthy. What do you think?
My current trust factor is about like a 6 or 7, I'd say.
Okay.
Um, health wise, I pray they're healthy. I think they should be all right. I mean, obviously they won't fall out the playoff picture if somebody injured, but um, now performance wise, that's it's a bit skeptical because they're not there, they don't really step up in those big times. So that's why I put them around 6 or 7. I can see them going to like making like a conference finals push, but that's probably as far as it goes, if I'm being honest.
Yep. Oscar, you have some more faith in them than Tyson does, or
No, I think it's about. I think it's about a 7 as well. If you take injuries into account, hopefully they don't get injured. But I, you're saying there might be a conference finals push. I think they make the conference finals. I think they make. I do like 100% think they're going to make the conference finals. And you say that you don't, T-Man, you don't know how they're going to play. We've got Joel Embiid putting up ridiculous numbers, and then you also say, oh, in the playoffs though, Embiid still puts up crazy numbers in the playoffs. He just doesn't have Ben Simmons shooting 1 for 12 from the free throw line.
Well, there's no
I
Ben
don't
Simmons,
agree
mate.
with you.
And then on the other hand, you've got James Harden, who in the playoffs was averaging like 36 or something in Houston. So
But that's not his
uh,
role now, though. Like
it's not his role, but he knows how to perform in there. And I think that there's a little bit of hate on what they're going to do. You've got MVP Embiid, and you've got James Harden, who's putting up really decent numbers, and he's got a different role on this team, and he's suited right into that. So I think they make conference finals, and
But
I think they make the finals as well.
you've
Listen,
also got
Oscar.
PJ Tucker shooting 0 from 20.
Oh,
So
yeah,
like
PJ Tucker.
it's
Listen,
not a Ben Simmons situation there. So.
listen, Oscar. I'm just going to stop you right there from spewing all that blasphemy over this set. That is an absolutely ridiculous take. I'm going to tell you right now, the Philadelphia 76ers are more likely to lose in the first round than make the conference finals. Okay,
Watch it
the
happen.
trust factor I have for this team is the exact same number that James Harden wears on the back of his jersey, and that's a number 1 because they are not getting it done. Okay, they are not getting it done, and you can't convince me otherwise. I think the point that you brought up about MVP Embiid is exactly why they're not going to get it done, because he is too focused on winning the MVP and not winning a championship, and that is all
But
he
when you're
cares about.
dropping
No,
46,
no,
9, and
I don't
8,
care.
it doesn't matter.
I don't care. It
Well,
does
I mean,
matter
they
because
didn't win.
he's not going to drop that in the playoffs, because right now he's dealing with calf soreness, right? He is questionable whether he should even be playing. Granted, he's hitting good numbers, but would you want him playing out there with those good numbers just to get injured in the playoffs? Would you want that? And the answer is no, you wouldn't. Because in the playoffs, if he gets injured, he's going to be like, oh, it's the same story. He gets injured. Oh, but he won the MVP. He said himself, when they were talking about this week, how Draymond said that it's harder to guard Jokic than him, he took it personally because he is focused on the MVP and not winning a championship. And that is the reason why I don't trust this team, okay? They lost to the Miami Heat in the second round last year and had an absolute choke job. Do they want to face Miami? Miami is the 6th seed right now, and I think that Philadelphia should be very scared of versing the Miami Heat come playoff time. And I think, one, Jimmy Butler turns into that guy in the playoffs. And I think when we talk about teams who are built for the playoffs and who are built for the regular season, it's a perfect matchup because the Philadelphia 76ers are not built for the playoffs and the Miami Heat are built for the playoffs. Oscar, please,
Luka,
get into
let me
me.
tell you let me tell you a little something about how the NBA works. Yeah, so they've made the 3rd seed. They might. I don't know how many games in front they are, but well, they've clinched it. I think they've clinched the 3rd seed probably. At the end of the day, probably have. Can we agree on that? Can we agree on that?
Yeah.
When you're in the regular season, why the hell are you worrying about the playoffs? If you're already in the 3rd seed, you've clinched the 3rd seed. Why the hell is your mind on the playoffs? It should be on each game at a time, one game at a time. You shouldn't be looking forward and putting pressure on yourself to do well in the playoffs. One game, no, you should not. What's the point? You play one game. Luka, you're not winning a championship by thinking, oh, I'm going to win a championship in the next coming months. You play one game at a time. You go on to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, and then when you come out on top, you're going to be like, thank God I didn't put pressure on myself to look into the future and say
they didn't even beat the Warriors, you know.
So answer me this.
They're not healthy. When you've got Joel and
okay, go on. No, I'll let you finish.
When you've got Joel Embiid dropping absolute ridiculous numbers because he's thinking one game at a time, he's going to lift up his trophy, then he's going to be like, okay, let's go playoffs. Easy. These guys got nothing. These guys got nothing on me.
He's not thinking about one game at a time.
That's what he's thinking.
Listen, do you think when the Warriors, right, when they had
thinking of the trophy?
Let me answer. I want you to answer this question. When the Warriors had KD, okay, do you think they were worried about what they were playing on a Monday night with 6 games to go in the regular season? Or do you think they were worried about facing LeBron in the finals again for a 3rd straight year? What do you think they were worried about? They did not care about who they were playing on a Monday night because at the end of the day, their focus is on one thing and one thing only, and it's a championship. And the fact that you think that Philadelphia's focus should not be on a championship is the reason why they aren't going to win the championship, because I don't think their focus is on the championship. And I think that's exactly why they are going to go nowhere in the playoffs. Absolutely nowhere. Final sounds from both of you. I'll let you both sound off because we are over time and we will most definitely get into this at a different date. But final sounds from you, Oscar, and then Tyson, you can finish it off.
Final sounds, I think that you guys are absolute Philadelphia haters. If you ever walk the streets of Philadelphia and they hear this, you are going to get attacked. That's all I'm saying. Those fans are crazy, and you will bad things will happen to both of you. Especially Luka. 0 out of 1 out of 10. What are you saying? T-Man.
What, just 76ers expectations, or probably a 2nd round exit?
Jesus Christ! Don't show your face in Philadelphia. I'm telling you.
Look, It's just going to be Celtics Bucks conference finals, and whoever takes it from there.
Yeah, listen, it will certainly be something to watch. I pray that Embiid stays healthy because I'm getting sick of the narrative that Embiid and Harden just get injured in the playoffs. Okay, I actually want to see them healthy and come
Bro, it'd be
unstuck
sick. It'd
because
be so nice to watch.
yeah, because I still think they're going to crumble even if they're healthy. So that would just be a completely different angle to talk about. But we are going to have to wrap it up there, guys. Thank you for joining with me today on episode 25 of Priceless Takes. We will be back sometime next week, likely on a Saturday night in America, Sunday in Australia for our Australian viewers. And thank you for being with us. Make sure again to follow us, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. We're on everything, posting our shorts, posting stories, polls. We love the interaction with the viewers. Oscar Hardcastle and Tyson McMullen, I appreciate your company. Thank you for being on here with me. And go Horns. Go Horns. That's all I have to say to finish off. College basketball, getting in the thick of things. But, ladies and gentlemen, that is all. Thank you for being with us. Priceless Takes episode 25. I'm your host, Luka Price, and we will see you next time.